Hello and welcome to episode 158 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is August 4th, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
As you might have realized, we are recording this episode a little earlier than usual. The reason for this is that a few weeks ago, we were lucky and got Noopur Vaishnav as an intern in our team who worked on some cool AI and SAP integration scenarios. Unfortunately, she will leave us this week, and we wanted to make sure that we could quickly sync up with her. Because of this, we will skip the news of the week section and hand directly over to Noopur. Noopur, first of all, thank you very much for joining. Can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so as Holger mentioned, my name is Noopur, and I am really happy to be on this podcast. I am a summer intern in Microsoft. I'm working on the SAP on Azure team with Holger. And before this, I am currently doing my master's in engineering management at Duke University. And before I came for my master's in the US, I completed my undergrad in India, and I studied computer science. And after that, I worked in SAP actually as a software engineer for about a year and a half. And it was there where I realized I wanted to be a product manager. So I left SAP and I joined a startup as their first product manager. And then I realized that I wanted to learn a bit more about business, which is why I came to the US to do my master's in engineering management. And now I'm at Microsoft as an intern.
Absolutely amazing, Noopur, and it's really great that we met up. And I think with your history, first being at SAP, now being at Microsoft, I think this is perfect fit. And again, I think we were super happy and super lucky to get you. So fantastic. Actually, one thing that I was wondering, and maybe that is also interesting for others, how did you learn about the internship at Microsoft? How did you apply? How did you end up here, basically?
Right. So when you come for a more than 1 year master's degree program, or when you have a 2-year program, you usually have a summer in the middle between when your course term ends and when you start your next term. And in that summer, you usually have to do an internship. And so I always knew I wanted to be a product manager in a tech company. And so Microsoft actually has one of the biggest summer internship programs in the US in terms of tech companies. And so I already knew about Microsoft's internship program. And so before I actually came to the US, I applied to Microsoft on LinkedIn, their internship program. And then after that, sort of when I came here, the interview process went on and I got the internship. But yeah, the Microsoft internship program is pretty popular. It's there for product management, technical program management, as well as software engineering and data science for the tech industry.
Oh, cool. Honestly, I wasn't aware of this, and maybe, I mean, Goran and I, we are both based out of Germany, so maybe that's why at least I wasn't aware that Microsoft had such a big internship program in the US. So
yeah,
cool.
So just to give you an idea, this year there are 2,000 interns only in the Redmond area.
Wow.
And around the world, there are around maybe 3,000, 4,000 interns.
Okay.
Really? Okay, and you learned about this on LinkedIn, and you applied via LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the post on LinkedIn, but like I said, it's a very famous program, so I knew about it before.
Okay, and then how's the process? So you applied for the internship, but how? I mean, obviously, how did you end up in our team, actually? Was this pure luck? I mean, and we got lucky?
I think it was pure luck. So I think when they interview you, they don't interview you for a specific team. It's only maybe around 1 or 2 weeks before I joined that I knew I was going to be on this team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So probably they knew you had the SAP as a tag.
Yeah, so maybe someone saw that and then they mapped me to the team.
Okay, so
fantastic.
Good thing.
But that's really cool, because if you would have ended up in another team, okay, you probably would have done also a good job there. But I think we were really happy to have you there and really see what you have done in such a short time frame, actually.
Yeah, it was really nice to be on this team too, especially because SAP was sort of my first job, so I always have a soft spot for it. And then after that, coming here, getting to sort of still be in touch with that is very nice.
Oh, Perfect. So then again, luckily you ended up in our team. How did it come to the goals or the ideas? Who decided, or how did you end up with the scenario that you then implemented and that you'll show us in a second?
Right. So when I came here, sort of my manager sort of told me my project is to explore. Microsoft has released these many AI solutions and services in the past 6 months. And so maybe your internship project could be to explore how these AI use cases can benefit SAP customers, or can be put together in the SAP scenario. So the first step of my internship process was basically just to explore the different, SAP lines of businesses, and then also the Microsoft AI services, and see where it's a good fit. And then after that, it's always better to show the community through a prototype or a demo. So after that, out of all the use cases that I came up with, I sort of picked the one that would have the most impact and would showcase how generative AI could sort of help understand complex data and make it easy to access in a conversational manner. And then after that, when you look at it, maybe a salesperson is the person who could benefit the most from that, as their job is very on the go and they don't always have time to read and access SAP systems. So that's why we came up with the use case. And the use case is it's basically the use case that we built out is the goal of the use case is to sort of access SAP data, teach the generative AI about the SAP data, and then ask the AI questions about the SAP data. And so from the salesperson's perspective, what we built out is a sales assistant chatbot, which is could be accessed through Microsoft Teams. And what that bot basically does is it understands the SAP product information for the salesperson, and the salesperson can just sort of ask the bot anything about their data. And then after that, it can go one step forward, and let's say the salesperson is talking to a person, to a customer, and the customer on the spot, maybe even on the phone, says, okay, yeah, I want to buy maybe 20 units of this product. The salesperson can enter that into the Teams interface, and it will actually go in the back end and create the sales order for the salesperson in the SAP system. So it basically reduces number of screens the salesperson has to access.
So that's like a private secretary, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and then again, this is right now is just the use case for a salesperson, but the same, if you change the data into maybe supply chain data or any other data, it could still serve the same purpose for someone, some other line of business as well.
Cool. Can you show us the scenario?
Yeah, I would love to show you guys. So I'll just share my screen.
Because now you made us all very excited to experience this scenario. And cool. Okay, so we're starting in Teams.
Yeah, so you can see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically this is the Teams interface, and this is just a bot that's developed using, deployed using Power Virtual Agents. And so that's how you have the interface on Teams. But this bot is basically now your sales assistant, and I'm going to pretend to be a salesperson talking to a customer. And let's say before I talk to my customer, I just want to sort of get a short summary of the products that are there in my system. So I could just ask the bot,
Can you please get me a short summary of the product?
So I just asked the bot to give me a short summary of the product we have, and maybe what they do, so that, because sometimes SAP data has a lot of material numbers and it doesn't really have names. So yeah, so it sort of understood the data, and it is giving me all the products, different types of products. And so let's just say I'm talking to a customer, and the customer is interested in steering wheels. So I could ask,
And while you type, I think what was also really cool is you're not accessing any demo data, but you're really accessing the production tables. So this is a real life scenario that you're doing here. We are really accessing real data. So if I would open up the SAP Fiori screen or the web GUI or whatever, I would really see this data. This is not just some sample demo data here.
Right, yeah. So it sort of came back with data on steering wheels. And then let's say, I'll say, can you tell me the dimensions, let's say height and width, and recommend the smaller product to me.
Okay. So now you're basically, I mean, we have the product now, but obviously every product has different properties associated with it, like the width and height. And now by just, again, doing a natural query, you're asking the SAP system for the data from the SAP system. And here we go. Okay.
Yeah, and it also, moreover, you see, it provided you with the data, but it could also infer like which one is smaller and which one is bigger.
Yeah.
And it could also do more complex queries as well, depending on maybe the time that you have. Because the more complex the query is, the longer it may take for the processing. So for this sake, I just asked it for the smaller one, but it can do more complex queries. And so, yeah, let's just say, can you place, and let's just say I want the smaller steering wheel. So I'm just saying, can you place the sales order for the smaller?
That's really cool. And I mean, if I'm just, I mean, you're typing this now, but potentially this could also be with voice recognition. So coming back to your sales call, this could really be a call.
And now it just asked me for the quantities. I'm just going to say 100.
Oh, nice. So you ask about the sales order, but then it noticed that, well, I need to know the quantity, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So it asks for the quantity, and now.
Oh, yes.
Cool.
So yeah, it says it's only 20. Yeah, okay, all right.
That's also nice. Okay, so it detected you wanted to order 100, but then it said, no, look, the maximum quantity is only 20. And then it just asked you, would you like to order then just 20? And you said yes. Oh, and now we have actually the sales order number from the SAP system.
Yeah, so now let's just confirm that it actually exists. So now what I'm going to do is actually go on to the SAP system, and then and then enter the sales order number. And then you'll see that the sales order for the material number was created.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's this use case, and I'll talk a bit more about what's happening in the background. So basically, this bot was was deployed using Power Virtual Agents, in which you sort of what you have to do is go into the channels and choose Teams as your channel of deployment. So now the bot will be hosted there, and then in the background of the bot, what you have to do is set instructions for the bot to respond to different triggers or prompts. So in this case, I've just used the fallback prompt, which is just any default other than maybe hi, hello. It can then put it to go through this flow. And in this flow, somewhere around here, you actually call an action. And that action is a Power Automate flow. So now from the bot, it moves to Power Automate, which is the backend. And I'll just show you a brief idea of the flow. Right. So here it's being called from Power Virtual Agents, and you're basically getting two inputs from it. The first input is the latest phrase that the customer has. Let's say the latest thing is, can you place a sales order? So that's the latest phrase. And also the entire chat history, because what the Azure OpenAI bot does is that it sort of doesn't understand. It can only process one message at a time. So you have to keep updating it with the entire chat history every time you go, every time you send a request. So that is the first step. And then after that, you basically just set up a prompt and you set this is the prompt. And then after that, in this step, you add the SAP data. And like Holger mentioned, this is actually SAP system data, and SAP system data is sort of scattered around different tables. So what I did was go into the SAP system and extract columns from different tables to get all the product properties. Like, for example, material number and description were in different tables. And then I, for now, manually put all of them in an Excel and copy pasted that data onto onto this. However, there are different ways to do it, which you can see later on how to develop it for scale. And then after that, the next step is right. So now after that, you have your system prompt and you also have the messages. So what you have to do is you have to form an array to send to the Azure OpenAI Studio bot with all the messages and the system prompt. So you have to keep reminding the bot that, okay, this is what your role is. Your role is to be a salesperson's assistant. And then along with that, you also have to along with that, here is the conversation history you need to understand, and here is the latest question that the user is asking. So this is just some technical stuff on how to sort of parse the array. And but the most important call is the call to the Azure OpenAI Studio, where you're basically sending in the body like I mentioned, the system prompt, the chat history, as well as your latest message. And after that, you will get a elaborate response from the bot. And you have to parse that response to get only the text. So let's say that when I send a request to Azure OpenAI, I get a lot of different fields about the bot, like maybe the bot's location, maybe the bot's URL, but I only want the response. So you have to actually parse the response using some expressions. And all of this is actually explained in a blog, which I will go through later in more detail. But so right, so after you get the HTTP response, you have to basically parse the response. And then there are two conditions that I set up for this bot. Number one is, let's say the user wants to create a sales order. In that case, in the system prompt, we have instructed the bot to actually generate a JSON that could then be compatible with the SAP system. So basically here I just added a check to see whether whether the user wants to confirm, create a sales order. And if the user wants to create a sales order, then we go into the yes condition and we send the sales order properties. Like here we took the item number and the quantity, and we actually make a call to the SAP system using the SAP ERP connector that is available very easily on Power Platform. And what you do is essentially you have to write the name of the BAPI and also send it all the JSON information. And here I've actually appended the item number and the quantity from what the bot gave me. And so yeah, you just send all this information to the SAP system to create the sales order, and then then the bot will return the sales number, document number to you. And let's say the user does not want to create a sales order yet, then it goes into the if no condition and it just continues the conversation with the bot. Right. So
So how was this difficult to implement what you did actually?
It actually was not difficult at all, in the sense that all you have to do is go onto Azure AI Studio, create an account, and deploy a bot on the Azure AI Studio. And once you have these endpoints, you can basically converse with the bot just via HTTP requests. And because of Power Automate as well as Power Virtual Agents, they've made it very easy for you to build a bot and also build sort of coding logic just without writing any code. So it was actually pretty easy for me. Yeah. And especially like when I was thinking, oh, maybe I have to send a call to the SAP ERP system, it seemed very hard. But thanks to the ERP connector, all I needed to do was just enter some information and it does everything else in the backend for you. Nice. So it was pretty simple.
So basically you have the boxes and you just connect them. So
yeah, just connect them. Yeah. And just a little bit of formatting of the sort of the messaging. That's all you have to format.
Oh,
And then
really
also
amazing.
like maybe this is kind of funny, but every time I've never actually used Power Virtual Agents or Power Automate before, but every time, or even an SAP system, access an SAP system before, but anytime I had any difficulty, you can just go on to, like, right now there's Bing, and then there's also ChatGPT. They can help you. You can ask them anything about Power Automate or Power Virtual Agents, and they can actually help you with steps on each of them. So it was very easy. Every time I had a problem, I just asked the
That's
AI
actually really
bots.
cool. And I think we'll see more and more of this, that we really ask ChatGPT or the Bing chat to help us with answers. And it's cool that you're actually using this to build another AI integration.
Yeah,
Cool.
that was cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so the learning curve, it just sort of flattens completely because it just becomes very easy. You don't need to learn how to use it. You can just use it and then ask how to do it.
Cool.
Really nice.
Nice. I mean, there is no coding here. You just have the boxes and
Yeah.
bring them together and order it more or
Yeah,
less.
there's no coding at
Yeah.
all. Yeah,
Mm.
it's all
Nice.
low code.
So you already briefly mentioned, if I'm now interested in replicating what you've done, or I hope a lot of from our audience, they would also like to replicate this. You already mentioned that you are working on a blog post that, well, actually, I guess by the time we air this episode, the blog post will be available. So we will have the blog post in the show notes. But would it make sense to quickly take a look at an early sneak preview at the blog
Yeah.
post that you're working at?
Yeah, I would love to actually show. So this is the blog post, and basically this blog post uses this use case to sort of demonstrate how easy it is to build all the other use cases that you could possibly have with the integration of Azure AI Studio Power Platform, as well as the SAP connector available on the Power Platform. So the blog basically just introduces the tools that are there on in Microsoft as well as SAP. I mean, the like different functionalities of AI in SAP, and how important it is right now for organizations to sort of optimize their own workflows using AI, and how simple it has become because of the SAP ERP connector as well as Microsoft Power Platform to connect two very important sources of data. So how I looked at this was, let's say an organization wants to improve themselves, they would look at their own data, and they have two important types of data. One is, their business process data like HR, finance, supply chain. And then the other source of important data is the collaboration between the employees in the company in terms of emails, Teams chats, and even like Excels, everything, and Word documents and PowerPoint. And so basically right now, currently, since SAP is a big ERP vendor and Microsoft is one of the leaders in the collaboration space, both of these companies have important data on people. And so it'd be very useful for a company to leverage both this data to build AI solutions. And this blog basically just shows an example of how it's now possible to do that just by yourself without even being a developer. And yeah, so it's basically empowering every individual to sort of utilize this data. And so this is just a brief introduction. And then after that, I go into depth about all the different tools that I used. So the different tools that I used are Azure OpenAI Studio to sort of deploy the chatbot endpoint on Azure. And then after that, I sort of give in depth detail on each step, so you could just sort of follow it through. And also, I also talked about how you could set up a Power Virtual Agents account, how you could set up a Power Automate account. And then also, again, I have listed down each step for each of these. And so this is just the flow.
It's really nice how very detailed you explained what needs to be done and where to get started, basically how to sign up for the trial, developer plans and stuff like that, and then really go, this is what you need to do in Azure OpenAI, this is what you need to do in Power Virtual Agents, this is what you do in Power Automate. I think that it's really beautifully explained what are the steps to reproduce this scenario.
Right, thank you. And then after that, the most complex part is the Power Automate flow, which has a lot of different formatting, like I showed, of the messaging. But for each of those steps, firstly, I've gone through how to set up your SAP system and the connection to the SAP system, which Holger has already posted on different on a different part of this podcast, different videos on how to set up your SAP system. But once that's done, and you can actually go through each of these steps in the blog. And I've also provided the prompt that I have used, as well as the tables in the SAP system with the different columns that are useful for getting product information. And then also, lastly, I have also added the different JSON code variables that you would need. And yeah, so basically this is just an in detailed explanation of how you could create. It's pretty lengthy, but it's not that hard. It's just because it's the pictures. And then at the end of the blog, actually, I have also listed down some of how the solution currently is just meant for small scale use. However, I've also mentioned about how you could sort of scale the solution, and actually, right now, as I mentioned, I have copy pasted the data from the SAP systems onto an Excel and then into a prompt. But in the real life, obviously, that is not feasible. What you could actually do is load all the SAP data onto Azure and then access it so that it's easier. And also after this, one of the caveats of this solution is that SAP has a lot of rows of data, and you can't put all of them into the system prompt to the chatbot all the time. So you have to sort of truncate the data. So right now, what I did was just randomly truncate it to fit the system prompt. But in real life, if you could use something like Azure Cognitive Services, which would first read the user query, and then let's say I say steering wheels, then it could only scan the database for the steering wheels. And then after that, send only that data to the system prompt so that the data is limited. So these are just some suggestions on how you could scale. And yeah, that is the blog.
Cool. Wonderful.
No, I think I really like also this short outlook that you did there, because as you said, I mean, when you query the data, the short this was not the main focus of the work that you wanted to do. You wanted to focus more on the AI piece. So in order to just get the data, as you said, you just used Excel to dump the data there. But in a real life scenario, and there's no magic behind this. In a real life scenario, we would probably use the SAP CDC connector, and we had Ulrich on the show sometime back where he talked about how to extract the data into an Azure data lake, and then you would just use you would just connect to this Azure data lake to retrieve all this information. I mean, potentially you could also query the SAP system directly, but that would probably introduce some delays. So I think the way how you handle this by just doing a very pragmatic approach here for this scenario, but then also providing the outlook how this would be done in real life is also really great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, cool. So I think with that we're already done. So I would like to ask you, what's next with you? I mean, you're going back to university, but maybe we will see you at Microsoft again after we're done.
Yeah, I would love to be back in Microsoft. But yeah, so after I go back to after I go back to my college, I have some courses to take, and after that, I would like to be back in the industry as a product manager. And yeah, I would love to come back to Microsoft. Yeah.
That would be really great, Noopur.
Super.
Good. Noopur, thank you so much, not only for joining our podcast here today, but also really for all the work that you did over the last few weeks. I really enjoyed working with you. I think the results of what you developed here was really amazing. I was super impressed how fast you just said you've never used Power Virtual Agent before. You've never used Azure OpenAI Studio before, but still you were able to quickly do this to grasp the concepts and implement it in a very nice way, and then build a really cool demo out of it. So thank you so much, Noopur. I wish you really all the best, and I would be super happy to see you back at Microsoft at some point.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all your guidance. Yeah, so Holger and I have a time difference, but he's always been he's in Germany and I'm in Redmond, so it's a 9-hour time difference. And so when his day ends is actually when my day starts. But we've been able to communicate, and he's been helping me through this time difference. So it's been really nice. Thank you so much for all your help.
My pleasure, Noopur. And just look at the time. I mean, you're getting up very, very early. It's 7 a.m. for you, so there's a lot of commitment from your side there. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Then I think we can close the call for today. Thank you so much. And again, I would be happy to see you at Microsoft at some point.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.